Let's go. Let's do it. What's up? Good evening. Good evening. I'm about to log in and get my co-host on deck. Tune in, tune in, tune in. Hold on. Let me invite Miss Kelly Della to the situation. All right. Welcome to episode of We Need Each Other podcast. Join. What's up? What's up? Everybody come in. Nice to see you as well. Nice to see you as well. Okay, I'm send an invite to my co-host. What's up, my brother? What's up? What's up? We're gonna have a talk tonight. A beautiful talk. Gonna have a special guest. The topic for tonight, first we're celebrating National Men's Health Awareness Month. And we want to focus on mental health. The way this conversation came was really divine. It's really beautiful. And also I reached out to a close friend of mine who's a mental health therapist who is going to help us answer some questions and also just give us a vibe and break the stigmas about mental health. A lot of people are scared to talk about it. So once again, I'm going to send an invite to Miss Kelly Della so we can get this going. We invite y'all to tune in. And any questions you have, I can just throw them in the chat. I'll see them. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Share this broadcast if you can. Share this broadcast. So about a few weeks ago, me and my friend Kayla, we were having some really beautiful conversations, and we figured that people need to hear this, the different perspectives, and sometimes just on a conversational level. Sometimes it's just the presence. And we decided to get live at least once a week and ask the tough questions. So hey ma, waving to my mom. But yeah, we decided to just be vulnerable, be honest, and have beautiful conversation. Have beautiful conversation. Once again, Kayla. Send that invite one more time. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry. Oh, you was there in the waiting room. I should accept it. What's up, Ed? Unable to join. Let's try this one more time. Accept. Accept. Okay. Yeah, stay with me. Stay with me. Drum roll. Let's get it down.
Always the drum roll.
Always. You got to get the introduction. You got the introduction.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Yeah, I kind of set the plate for us, and I let them know the topic of discussion. We're just here to first celebrate National Men's Health Awareness Month and to tackle an issue that a lot of people shy from, and we chose to just be vulnerable on this topic. The topic is mental health. We're talking to the general public, but specifically, I think it's important when it comes to men because it's sometimes hard for us to be vulnerable, to ask the questions, to even cry, or just say we need help. So,
yeah, for sure. The importance of, your health matters too. Mental health, physical health, emotional health. You guys are just as important, and it's important to relate that message to you and to give you that reassurance. Because for us, it's a lot easier to speak up and say, I'm not okay or I need help. But you guys think that you always have to be Superman. And at the end of the day, you're a human just like us. So hopefully this helps someone to open up or even to just get in tune with their own emotions and to say, you know what, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to cry, even though I'm a man.
Say that. So first of all, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Wait, right now I am in my mommy duties. I don't know if you could hear Romeo in the background, but that's why my arm is like, I'm trying to But I am doing fantastic. I'm doing great. I just got back from my trip from Greece and London, which was amazing. I 10/10 recommend. I hope everyone is able to visit Greece. But yes, I'm doing great. I'm doing amazing. I'm super excited for tonight. I am super excited about the growth of our podcast. There's so much more in store, and I'm just grateful, feeling super, super grateful. I am operating from a gratitude heart and just happy to be here. How are you?
I'm great. I do hear your son in the background. Tell your son Romeo I said hello.
I'm like,
I hear him crying.
My arm is like, telling y'all, man, mommy duties ain't easy.
Yo, speaking of travel, like just going straight into it, yo, that's a huge thing for mental health. Just kind of just getting away, changing your scenery, breathing some
Absolutely.
different air.
He's about to join for a second.
Okay, tell him.
Special
Okay.
guest.
Romeo.
He wants to he wants to hear about mental health. No, absolutely. Traveling is it does something to you mentally, physically, emotionally. That is my one of my biggest forms of self-care, and I recommend it 100%. I think a lot of people always focus on the, oh, traveling is expensive or I got to pay bills. We were not born to just pay bills and die. The bills are going to be there. The stress is going to be there. Work is going to be there. The day-to-day
Yeah.
responsibilities are going to be there. You need to take that vacation or even a getaway, because there's a difference. A getaway is more to relax. A vacation is to, party, get lit, but whichever
Yeah.
one works for you.
You don't
Hi,
know.
Jasmine.
You don't. Yeah. First, shout out to everyone who's joining us. You don't know how being out of the city has kind of given me that peace, rest, and relaxation. Coming to see my mom here in Georgia, being around trees. I don't know if you can hear like the crickets in the background. I'm out in my mom's,
Yeah,
and yeah, just changing your scenery, being in a different state of mind is great for your mental health. And I think
absolutely.
that it's beautiful to just talk about it and be open and honest. A little later on, we're going to have our special guest. We have a professional mental health therapist, my friend, Tyuana Herring, and we're just going to ask some questions and we're going to break through some of the stereotypes and the stigmas and some of the tough questions that people just don't want to ask. So to kind of start this podcast off, one thing I thought was really important. Real quick, I'm gonna say rest in peace to anyone who has suffered a recent death
Mm,
or suffered the loss of anyone, co-worker, friend, because I know that tends to plague us mentally a lot. We hold on to these things, and it doesn't matter how long ago the death happened. Sometimes we hold on these things for years and years and years,
yeah,
and as adults, sometimes we're still dealing with it. And I think that plays a huge part in terms of our mental health, in terms of just being well. I have friends who
absolutely.
continually, and even myself, I don't even want to put anyone else out there, but even me, going back to deaths that occurred at 14 years old, 13 years old. These are things that sometimes still plague us, some things that we still haven't processed. So I wanted to first open up by
Absolutely.
saying rest in peace to anyone who had a recent loss, or even at any point. I don't want to even say recent, a loss that they may be dealing with. And it's beautiful to process it, to talk about it, or to just say, I'm not okay, or I need help dealing with it. And I think that's the nature of this podcast. So we need
And
each other.
to add to that too, yes, I'm really happy that you mentioned that. That's important. So rest in peace to anyone who has passed away or anyone who's dealing with a loss, also in the form of death, but also in the form of any type of loss. Because I think oftentimes we seem to forget that a breakup, you go through a grieving process. Whether you lost a relationship, a friend, a job, all of that is a loss. And we oftentimes think that if it's not death, it has nothing to do with grieving. But when you
Mm,
lose something, whether it's in the physical form or into the spiritual world, or whether it's someone else or it's something materialistic, that is still a loss, and you still go through the grieving process. So,
loss in general.
yes, a loss is a loss. I mean, let's be real, not every loss is a loss. Some of them losses are blessings, but for anyone grieving any type of loss, prayers to you, peace to you.
I think that's the beautiful thing in like that's the processing it, because
Hmm.
sometimes initially it feels like a loss, and
Absolutely.
sometimes if you don't really take the time to really say, okay, I also gained something. Um,
Hmm.
one of the most recent deaths that I suffered that I'm actually still processing, my grandmother. She was literally
Mm.
like my best person.
Oh,
She
so
was my
sorry.
go-to, and initially I didn't know how to deal with that. I had a lot of unresolved emotions, and I didn't really know where to place them. I didn't know who to talk to. Um,
Mm.
Things I did was actually someone said talk to her. There was an
Oh,
exercise where I actually wrote her a letter, um, and then someone told me
wow.
another exercise. They said write a letter from her to yourself, and that
Wow.
letter allowed me to hear her voice and allowed me to hear the things that I know she would say to me. So she was affirming that, Josh, you're doing a great job, or even saying, I love you. So I wrote these words and I heard them in my grandmother's voice. and
That
it
is
helped
so
me really process.
powerful. Wow.
Yeah. So shout out to everyone in the chat real quick. I always want to include y'all. Shout out to everyone pulling up. And any questions y'all have, y'all can definitely do it. Y'all can just put it out there and we'll kind of get to that. One
Oh,
thing
we have
that
a
I
beautiful audience. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
much love, snap it up for y'all. Snap, snap, snaps. Um, real quick, just curiosity. First I was having a talk with my aunt, right? And she was saying, when we're children, we kind of result to what we know. So when you go through a pain
Hmm.
or you go through a loss and you don't know what to do with it, you result to whatever you have in your self-care toolbox or whatever. And some people may result to turn to drugs. Some people may result to being really
Hmm.
quiet. Some people may result to just being around people all the time that kind of makes them feel better. Some people have different things in their toolbox to handle it. And quick question for you: what is in your toolbox in terms of like when you're going through any point of grief, anxiety, whatever, whether something you learn as a child or something you understand as an adult? What is in your toolbox to kind of deal with that?
As a child growing up, first of all, I am super grateful and blessed to come from a family that is full of faith. So for us, it's always been God first, family a close
Mm,
second. So in my toolbox, I always lean towards God. But as we know, we're humans, and sometimes, unfortunately, our faith shakes. And we're like, God, I'm talking to you, I'm praying, and I just don't see a difference, or I still feel the same. I have all of these unresolved feelings. I'm feeling anxiety, depressed, sad, angry. So it's very important to always, daily, you have to practice your faith daily. That is number one in my toolbox. And family. I come from a family who's very family oriented. My life revolves around them. I feel super lucky and blessed that my sister, who's also my best friend, is also a mental health therapist. So she's always giving me tips, and also
that's
also practicing self care and personal development, because
mm,
you too have to get control of your emotions and how you deal with certain things. So it really is a process. But what works for me is God, family, self care, personal development, and just surrounding myself with positive energy. I have a very I know a lot of people, but I have a very small circle of friends, and I know that that small circle of friends is all I need. Not that I'm not open to meet new people. Absolutely, I am. I'm a social butterfly, the Libra in me. But my small circle of friends, they are also my outlet. So that's very
mm,
important, especially as an adult. It's very important to surround yourself and find your tribe. Surround yourself with great people.
find that love, find that reassurance, find the people who feed your soul. I realize
Mm-hmm.
even now, still as a grown adult, I get quiet. I get really quiet when
Mm.
I'm maybe a point of anxiety or a point of just not knowing what to do with my emotions. Um, yeah, I get really quiet, and I cry. I cry, and that's something that I've learned that it's okay, and I actually use that to kind of process my emotions. So early on, I wouldn't cry. I would try to hold it in. I
Mm-hmm.
remember a point where I had a my great grandmother had passed away, and my closest uncle had passed away, and here I am. My heart was ripped out of my chest, and I was super duper sad. And I remember I went into the bathroom and I just smiled. So I kind of like faked it. I faked that I
Wow.
was happy, and I said, if I can smile, I'll be okay. But at the time, as a
Wow.
young kid, that was what was in my toolbox. Just kind of, I don't know if you want to call that fake it till you make it or whatever. But my toolbox was just saying, if I can pretend to be happy, then I'm happy. And
Wow.
I realized that was something I even carried as a grown man. People ask, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?" We'd be like, I'm all right. Well, I'm good." And we're quick to say
Right, I'm
that
good.
versus
I'm
giving a
good.
real
Real quick. Yeah.
versus giving a real answer. But it
Wow.
is for men specifically. I can attest to the fact of definitely crying in front of people. I cry alone, crying in front of people, or asking for help, or even saying I'm not okay. For
Mm-hmm.
men specifically, because we come with this ego and we come with this bravado, and we're like supposed to be I was saying the pillars of your family in some kind of way. So if we're in pain, we're showing pain. It's like we're allowing other people to kind of have a moment of weakness as well, or even associating crying or pain with weakness. I'm learning
Right.
that that's just processing, and I'm human.
And what you mentioned right now is so powerful. You said allowing other people to kind of have their space and cry and let it out. But that right there is like, okay, you're allowing other people, but who's allowing you? You know,
Talk
it's
about
also
it.
very
Yeah,
important.
talk about it. Talk about it. I'm glad we're having this talk, and it kind of opens the air. Kind of goes with the theme of this podcast. So, like I said, we need each other. We need each other from perspective wise. Someone who can just really give answers that we may not have, things that we may not even consider in our mind. And I think that's why it was
Hmm.
important to have people with a professional perspective or just expertise in a certain situation, something that we don't
Absolutely.
know. And what I do want to do, I just want to send the invite as she comes in. We're going to invite mental health therapist Tyuana Herring. Let me just give her the invite
I'm
really
just
quick.
reading the comments.
Cool, cool, cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
while following Tiana online, I saw she was very not only into physical fitness but mental fitness, and that's what she does for a living. And
Perfect.
there you go, drum roll. Hold on, we got to give it a proper introduction. Drum
Yeah, I
roll.
gotta get the drum roll.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So to the conversation, we have mental health therapist Tiana Herring. She's here to just give us a good word, and also just to join the kind of conversation and to provide a different perspective. What's up, T? How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited that y'all invited me. I was kind of thrown off of it, to be honest. But I'm definitely excited because I wasn't expecting an invite like to do this. So I am grateful for it. I'm definitely grateful for it.
And
I
we're
think
grateful for
part of
you. We're grateful for you joining us and sharing your expertise. You know, we appreciate you and your time. So thank you so much. This is such an important topic.
Yes, it definitely is. Especially for our community. I always refer things back to our community. Mental health has been stigmatized in our community very heavily. So it's definitely an important topic for us. For sure.
Absolutely.
I
Mhm.
think when we say like we need each other, that's reaching out to our resources that we do have, and realize that we're not these islands that are here by ourselves with our own resources. So we have to reach out to the mainland, or reach out to our friends that are probably in a position to help us, or
Mhm.
reach out to people who are in professional environments. Say we need help. I have no problem saying that I would like to sort out a mental health therapist for myself, so I can
Right.
just have a biased opinion. So so really quick, first, just how important is it to have someone to just talk to, an unbiased opinion, a professional to kind of help you process your thoughts?
Um, it's very important actually, and I'm glad you used the word like unbiased because I think one thing that when it comes to health that really keeps the stigma going is that we think that, oh, I can just talk to like my family members or my close friends. When that's very true, but they don't necessarily have the same capacity as a professional to really help you move from one space to the other and stay there, right? Really, I
Mm,
feel just from personal experience and also experience from seeing clients that it's okay to have someone that you rely on, that you're close to, but a professional is going to help you strategize, create a treatment plan to help you get out of and move forward from where you are. So it's
mm.
definitely important.
So your girlfriends and your partners, your family are not your therapists. We tend to burden
They're
our
not.
people with all of our stuff, and we need someone who really knows how to deal with it on a real level.
Yeah, like someone, that, like I said, that one, well, like you said, that's unbiased, but two, like the important understanding is that has a professional capacity, right, to handle your stuff. I think that if people understood that, like not everyone has the capacity to deal with your emotional struggles on a daily basis or weekly basis because we're some most of the time like you're dealing with your own stuff and it's really hard to really talk to someone about your stuff all the time and I'll always say this, like they aren't gifted with that capacity because it does take a special kind of person to be in this field. And I remember when I was
Absolutely.
out, like I had to build up my strength and capacity for people. It's
Mm,
something you learn how to do. It's always in you, but you learn how to exercise that muscle.
mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
In introducing you really quick, you said you'd rather the title of mental health therapist versus psychotherapist, and I thought that was interesting to kind of point out, and we kind of started to touch on it, but you can just elaborate a little more.
Yeah, so when I'm talking to people, I rather mental health therapist because it's more of an understood term than psychotherapist. It's more of like an industry term. Um, Psychotherapy, when you break down words, psychotherapy, we're like psycho, right? People get scared. People
They're
get
scared. They're like, "Oh, I'm not psycho."
that that word is a
scared.
little bit intimidating.
It's very intimidating, but in the field, it's just a form. It's a psychotherapist and mental health therapist. It's the same thing, but psychotherapy is doing right. It's taught there. We're using modalities. We're using interventions that have been evidence-based, that have been theories, that have been practiced for a long time to help somebody move from one state emotionally to the other. So when I'm talking to people like you and I, like that, when we're not in the profession, when I'm off of work, I just say mental health therapist, but in the field, it's therapy. Yeah, it's used.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It
That's a
sounds
great
kind of.
way to make people feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Earlier this morning, I was really like going into that in terms of the word psycho. I was like, okay, but I understanding with that it's actually come from psychology, the study of the mind, right? But I do know if you research the word psycho, you're going to get Alfred Hitchcock. You're going to get all of these horror films that are like you're going to get Norman Bates and stuff like that. And they're like, I don't want to associate anything with psycho, even if the actual word they're getting is from psychology. But they have took the
Right.
word psycho and it's crazy.
Nobody
It's
want
like I'm
nobody
not
wants to be
crazy.
psycho.
Talk, means talk therapy.
Talk therapy. Talk therapy. This question. Yeah. First, this show I have got like the most not only energy for it, but just even the most notes. Like this morning, I started researching stuff. I started researching memes and things like that from mental health therapy. And sometimes mental health has been reduced to like a meme. Sometimes you ever seen the meme of the little kid? He's crying, but he's saying, I'm okay," but he's actively crying. And that's a mirror of what we actually go through sometimes when inside we're really like broken, but on the outside we're here smiling, telling people, I'm okay, I'm
Yeah.
And
okay, I'm
pretending.
doing great.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That, and that's why I do what I do, because there are so many people that deal with that on a daily basis, especially men, like you guys were saying earlier. Um, just holding it in and masking it, right? Because you don't want anyone to look at you as weak. Black men, we look at Black men as the providers, as the warriors, as the people that are holding up the family unit. And it's just really hard for most Black men to seek help, unfortunately, right? They are that mean, right? They're saying they're okay, but deep down, they're hurting inside. And a lot of that stuff shows up behaviorally. A lot of that stuff shows up in their daily lives, even though they're saying okay, but it's like, you're not. Because look at your actions. And until you seek help, you sit down in front of a professional to actually show you, right? This is you.
Mm,
Look here, this is what you're doing. Yeah, that's when the real healing and the real journey begins. Yeah.
that part. Real quick, see my brother Greg, I see him in the chat. He says, this black folk talking about mental health and things beautiful. Like, I mean, that is beautiful because it's the vulnerability of breaking
Absolutely.
the stigmas of even saying, like I said, I'm not okay or I need help or whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. Kayla, I got a bunch of questions. I'm ready to go in. So at
I
any
no,
point
I have
that you think
questions.
about something, go
I
ahead.
have a
You
quick
you
question related to that because I'm so
do your
happy you
thing.
mentioned that because men in the Black and brown and Hispanic community, we see them as you're king, you're so strong, you're so powerful, you can't cry, you can't break down, you can't say that you need help because you're supposed to take care of us. You're supposed to lift us
Mm,
up and be there.
Mhm.
We're the only ones that can cry and say, I need you and lean on
whew,
you. So oftentimes, unfortunately, that creates this mindset in the Black man and the brown and Hispanic man that they feel, I don't need therapy because growing up, I was told that I had to be a man. Growing up, I said I had to take care of my family. And even unfortunately, as a little boy, sometimes when the father's absent, you are forcing this little boy to be the man of the household. So now, fast forward 15, 20 years later, what advice do you have for a man specifically who not so much does not believe in therapy, but feels like he doesn't need it because of everything he was told as a child or growing up?
Good question.
I I always tell people, like when it comes to therapy, people feel like they don't need therapy. It's it's really hard to force someone to do it, right? It's really hard to force someone to, or really force people to therapy, right? Because even in therapy, like there's stages of change, right? Most people are in, they're not even thinking about it because of generationally what they've been told, right? But if there is someone that, you know, you need, just really to accept that, hey, it's okay, like really, like providing that reassurance that it's okay to go talk to someone, it's okay to seek therapy, right? Because the pattern, again, looking at your pattern, looking at your life, your emotional space, you cannot do this alone. It's okay to feel, right? It's okay to talk about that to someone. It's okay to express yourself, because you can't alone, right? And reminding them about the generation, like if they have kids, they don't, like generationally, do you want to break the stigma generationally? I
Absolutely.
back to even when I work with my clients that look like you and I always refer them back to generationally, like we're breaking generational curses, and remind them of that, and that does something for us, right? It's like she's
Absolutely.
right. Right, like I do need to change the way that I see this for the person that's coming up behind. So
So the curse stops here.
yes, it stops with you. It stops with you. Yes.
So
Someone
reassurance
else.
and also creating that safe space that they weren't provided as a child, right? I'm assuming us giving them that safe space.
Yes. Yes. You
Yeah.
always give someone that you are. I always say, like, just as regular people, we always want to be a safe space for people. Because there's so much going on, especially for men, black men. Like we always want to be able to be a safe space because there's just so much going on, especially now. It's so much
Mm-hmm.
more, so much stuff going on now, and we just always want to be able to be that safe space for them to feel like it's okay.
Mm, Someone in the
Amen.
chat said, so I can imagine us grown men going through a bunch of stuff. But someone in the chat was saying, how do we help our young boys, like the young kids that are really
Mm.
like going? I can imagine they may not have a lot of things in their self care toolbox that I may have as a old, or they may not heard the term "it's okay to cry," or they grow up with the thing. Like she said, someone tell them they're the man of the house. So young, you're already walking around with that bravado and that ego, and you're not allowed to or even associating crime with being weak. I was actually going to say the word weak, but I don't want to even use that word and say weak because it's not weak, but sometimes it's vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not weak. So I do have one to kind of piggyback off of that. What are some of like the subtle signs or like the silent cries that you see in your profession? Like I said, people who may not even know it, but sometimes it may be a call that they just want to talk, but under it, they're actually a cry for help, saying, I really need some really deep assistance. So, what are the subtle signs or the silent cries that you see for people actually needing help?
I think a really big one, and you as something that you do, is you kind of detach yourself and isolate yourself
Mm.
a bit. But
Mm,
I feel like someone is really, really, really needing help, like they isolate themselves to the capacity where it's like really noticeable, right? It's going to
mm,
be a longer period of time. Another
mm,
I feel that we miss is ability and anger. Um, when people are depressed, a part of depression is irritability and anger.
Mm.
I think, the average people think that it's just sadness, or it's just, someone always crying or can't get out of bed. No, there are people that are depressed that are actually irritable, they're angry, and they're operating in that on a daily basis. So if you notice that someone is always irritable or angry just about something, the littlest things set them off, though that's a subtle sign too that like something is going on. They might be depressed, or they might actually have something, a bigger mental health issue going on.
That's a very good point.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to hear. As a grown man, I heard it's okay not to be okay. And I was like, that blew my mind. I was like, it's okay? Oh,
You're like, is it?
thought about that. Yeah, I never even thought about that. It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay. It's okay. And that's the biggest thing, like, we need to tell ourselves all the time. I tell myself, right? As I think Black women, this is about men, but like Black women too, we try to hold up this whole, I'm strong, Miss Independent, like I don't want to feel type energy. And, we have to, it's okay to feel. I tell my clients that all the time, especially the young boys, like, it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel. I want you to experience these emotions. I want you to sit with these emotions, and I want you to talk about them.
Absolutely.
Okay, like I say, Kayla, I can go. So anytime you think of a question, Kayla, you could just go on. But I don't want to see why I'm taking it. But I did have one.
I'm just in awe. I love this. I love this conversation.
Yeah,
It's
this is
so
beautiful.
needed.
Shout out to everyone who has pulled up to the chat. Shout out to everyone who's viewing this live, whether or viewing the replay. Once again, we're sitting here with mental health therapist Tyuana Herring, and she's helping us kind of break free of some of the stigmas, or just address some of the concerns, but just have a conversation about it. So another thing I said, are there any triggering terms or phrases to avoid when advising someone about mental health? Things that you shouldn't say that would kind of push somebody off the edge, or when someone's in that vulnerable space, treading delicately.
One thing about triggers, like, there are different things that are going to trigger, everyone. All our triggers are uniquely different. And so you never will 100% know when someone's in a vulnerable space what will trigger them. But being mindful of how you show up when you're dealing with them is what's going to be the bigger difference. And what I is, you want to be able to register what they're dealing with. A lot of times we try to make things about us when we're helping someone. We try to relate their issue to our issue, not realizing that that's invalidating their experience. So when it comes to triggers, it's more so just not invalidating what they're feeling, right? Be able to validate what they're experiencing in that moment, and, like we said, safe space, right? Because once a person feels that you aren't present with them, right? Hearing you but not listening, not processing, and that's where you want them to get. You want to be able to process the help that you're getting.
Like someone in the chat, they said, telling people they're crazy, or just get over it, or it's not that serious,
Yeah.
Or you're okay. You're okay. You're making it a big deal.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, like, you don't want to invalidate it by saying those words like, "Oh, that's nothing. That's small. Like, you'll get over that. It'll be okay tomorrow," because it might not be, right? I saw a meme that it was on Facebook. It was a boy. He was doing the dishes, and he had tears in his eyes. It was a little cartoon image. He was doing the dishes. He had tears in his eyes, and in the quote, it's in the speaking quote, it was like, "I'm depressed," and he was crying and, like, doing the dishes, and his mom was in the background and saying, "Depress those dishes." I said, "Oh, Black community and whole meme," right? Because whenever people, they're experiencing those emotions, that's not something you want to do, right? You don't want to be like, oh, well, depress that bed, make that bed up,
Mm,
right? We don't want to ignore when someone is like in a vulnerable moment. We don't want to invalidate it like that.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
And unfortunately, that trauma stems from childhood because now, fast forward years later, he's always going to remember that. So
Absolutely.
now,
And
as a grown man, how can he feel comfortable or safe to open up, not even just to his partner, but just to anyone he encounters?
exactly. And that's what I was going to say. And then it leads to this cycle of a man masking his emotions and masking how he feels because he remembered that time that he was really depressed. Even if he was a child, he didn't have bills. You know, all he had to do was worry about going to school. Kids still feel, right? They still are
Absolutely.
those deep emotions. And he always remembered that moment where he felt his lowest as a child, and his mom was like, depress those dishes.
Mm.
Right. So
That's
yeah.
fire.
Mm.
Wow.
Especially from his mom, because, you know, our parents are supposed to be our safe space, especially as a
Absolutely.
Mm.
child. So
Absolutely.
now, how can he grow up and trust women? It really is a cycle. You know, his mom needs therapy too.
Yeah.
Say that.
Yeah. In our community, we see a lot of invalidation because parents healed from their stuff, right? They have not healed from their traumas, and so they're
Hmm.
projecting their kids. So it's best to be aware of that, be conscious of how you're speaking to your kids, and I feel like kids now they're more emotionally self-aware, so
Mm.
they're calling their parents out on their stuff, right?
Yeah,
So, um, but typically, you know, when children like if you are showing up as your unhealed version, as the unhealed parent, you're projecting your experience with your child. That's dangerous because now your child is dealing with what you're dealing with, even though it's not directly, you know, it's in
Mm.
hmm
trauma.
Transferring that anxiety. If I'm anxious and I'm making the house anxious and I'm upset and now
Yeah,
I'm passing it on to you. Now you're upset and it's like you get anger, you get anger, you get anger.
yeah, and you have kids that have angry parents, you have anxious parents, and they're projecting out on their kids, and then they're like coming to therapy like, I don't know why, they try to be perfectionists or they get so timid and scared when this situation is because, okay, look at how you're showing up as a parent at home.
exactly.
Mm.
You're creating that anxious child. You're creating
Yeah,
that child that's always like nervous or socially shy because of what you do to them, your stuff. So it starts with the parents. Like, parents definitely have to do a lot of work if they haven't done it.
absolutely.
Okay, I want to share this quote. It says, all stress, anxiety, depression is caused when we ignore who we are and start living to please others. That was a quote from Paulo Coelho. So even in terms of that anxiety, living in someone else's reality or not showing up for yourself and really not checking in with yourself first is always, and I can imagine mothers or people in general, but specifically mothers, just constantly having to show up for the children, always having to kind of be okay or not checking in with themselves first. I can
Especially
definitely
the
imagine.
single mothers too. Unfortunately, you know, that tends to happen a lot in our community, and single mothers, like you mentioned depression earlier, and how anger is a form of depression. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times when you see a single mom who's stressed out, who's angry, who's anxious, she might be dealing with depression, but she may also feel like, I can't say that I'm depressed or I can't
Mm,
break down because who's going to take care of my village? Who's going to take care of my
Absolutely.
children?
mm,
So it's so important for not only men to do the inner work, but also us women do it
Mm-hmm.
together.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And that's when seeking professional help comes in place because your therapist can help you create a plan, right, to make sure that everything remains balanced at home so that you can pour into yourself, so that you can
Hmm.
have these stuff. And I, that's what we miss, right? Like you said, who's going to take care of my village if I go get therapy, if I go seek help? But actually, it's okay to like go seek help and have someone else help you sort that out. It goes back to
Absolutely.
we need hello.
We need each other, right? And that
Yeah,
Other,
that,
professional, that
yeah,
professional is going to give you the tools that your friends and families don't have. And then
absolutely.
you can use those tools and share them with your friends and family who don't necessarily believe in therapy just yet, or who have not started their own sessions. So,
And you'll be surprised, like when one family member starts therapy, you know, of course it's like frowned upon. And then that person is like thriving. They're healed, they're thriving, they're soaring. And then it's like, oh, such and such started going to therapy too. Like right there, you just broke a
mhm,
cycle. Congratulations.
absolutely, you broke that curse. Yes,
It works like so if there's anyone like that's afraid of therapy or feels like it's intimidating or right, it's just you confronting you, right? So that you can be your very
mm,
best. Just think
boom.
like it's for you. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be intimidated by. But you just never know like who else you're going to inspire through you
Mm.
seeking professional help. And it doesn't mean that anything is necessarily wrong with you mentally. Like even therapists therapy, right? Because how are we going to pour it
absolutely.
up?
Therapists have therapists.
Start pour into other people's cups. Like professor in grad school, he was like, good therapists go to therapy. And I didn't really understand it when I was a student, but I mean, I get it. I get exactly what he means. So it's definitely not anything to be afraid of.
Question: how long have you been in this profession as a mental health therapist?
So I've been in the mental health field for 9 years.
Nice.
And I've been a mental health therapist for 5.
Okay. In doing it, do you ever have times when you are so bogged down by other people's things, or you're affected by taking in the issues and problems of other people? Yeah.
So when I first started out, yes, I agree that I did
Mm,
off from doing things because I was like, and let me rewind a little bit. The people that I have experienced working with when I first started off, they were severely mentally ill, severe schizophrenic, like personality disorders. It was heavy, right? And so, it weighed a lot on me just to see people in that space, and I didn't know how to hold space for them.
Mm.
mm,
Um, so I had to take a break and really figure out, like, is this for me? Like, like, should I be doing this? And then that's when it kind of hit me, like I needed to change the degree of people that I work with, like not people that are severely mentally ill, but just moving forward to people like you and I, and families, and just really finding my niche within the field. So now the population that I work with now, children's families, adults, sometimes it gets to me, but I know how to navigate out of that, right? I know how to care, how to take, 2 vacation days each month,
mm,
so I have time outside of work
absolutely.
because it's just not enough sometimes, right? So it's like I'm gonna have a 4-day weekend once a month, right? Intentionally because I need that space for myself. I need space. So in the beginning, but now it's just like I've learned how to really manage.
No,
Those
that was
mental
gonna
health
go.
days are important.
Absolutely. Snap it up for that. Snap it up for mental health days. That I kind of was going to
Absolutely.
my next thing. I want to ask you just ways that you decompress, or giving us practical self-care tips that we can do on our own to kind of help us decompress. We talked about vacation. You talked about taking days off for yourself. But what are some other practical self-care tips that we can do just to kind of care for ourselves?
Um, so when it comes to self-care, for me, I always think of remaining grounded, because there's a lot of things
Mhm.
that maybe that can create like tension, anxiety, or just like the smallest stimulus, right, in our day-to-day lives. And so I always seek things that are going to keep me grounded. As cliche as it sounds, journaling. Like that's the biggest thing, to be able to dump your thoughts out on paper and just move forward. It is so powerful. So like if you, let's say you have a journal, right? And for my religious people, spiritual religious people, like write a letter to God. Like that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, dear God, right? And that's my way of dumping out the things that are, holding me emotionally. So that's one thing that I do with my self-care. I like hiking, being in nature, water. I love water, so I will go to Florida back home in a heartbeat and get near some water. And really figuring out like the things that you like to do. I love cooking. Cooking is a form of therapy for me too.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
love
figuring out what calms you, what soothes you, and what really takes your mind from one space to the other. That's what self-care is all about.
Amen.
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. Miss Kayla, what's on your mind?
So
You got any
that,
questions?
yes, that ties to my next question too. So, sometimes, unfortunately, we are dealing with people who have a tough time admitting they have a problem. Um, so when do we say enough is enough and I kind of have to take care of myself because you're not accepting my help? So pretty much, how can we help and assist from a distance for someone who refuses to get help, but we clearly know it's pretty obvious that they need it?
Mm-hmm. Um, I think you said the perfect thing, like being able to identify your boundaries within it um,
Mm-hmm.
first, right? Because, like I said earlier, there's different stages of change and readiness for someone to help. You cannot you cannot ever force anyone to get help, right? Unless they are they're competent, you feel like they're hallucinating, they're having delusions, then you can get like a more crisis situation involved, and they can be, in Georgia we call it 1013, and they can actually be signed over to go to a facility because they are no longer safe for themselves or anybody else, right? That's when it's like they no longer have to say so, right? But when it's like someone who you're like, I'm getting burnt out from
Mm-hmm.
trying to get you to see you and what you need, your issues. Um, just really like remaining there, like you said, from a distance, providing them with tools. Like if you come across something like, hey, help you strategize on this issue. I remember you saying that you needed help with this, but not doing it where it's pulling from you. Like if you ever feel like you're being pulled and it's draining you, like you just create your boundaries and send them resources. It's all
Mm-hmm.
we can't ever really force anyone to get.
And that's
Absolutely.
so much, it's so much easier said than done because especially for us as women, it's in our nature to care for people. We always think that we can fix someone, especially a man. You see a broken man and you're like, oh, I can fix him. Look at my project. It's like, girl, like what's going on here? But it
Right.
really is in our nature. We want to fix you guys. We want to care for you guys. We want to take care of you, cater to you. So boundaries is something that is huge and it's real. Absolutely.
And really the mind of understanding that long as you planted a seed, you did your part, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can really like listen, you really need help, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I hit it with a hammer in their head and you're so drained. But if you shift to the space of, I'm going to send you resources, I showed up for you, I planted a seed. 2 weeks later, you know how God works. He's going to send a confirmation. He's going to, they might come
Absolutely.
word somewhere randomly, and they're gonna be like something's gonna click, right? Because you planted that seed 2 weeks ago for them to get help, and now they're probably gonna call you and be like, okay, I think I'm gonna go get help, right?
That's
You
right.
plant, yeah, just create a relationship too. Like, seed. I'm not trying to grow this flower and nurture it and watch it bloom, because that's not your job, right? Everybody's individual journey, and we are all at the end of the day responsible for ourselves. We can never, unless they're, like I said, unless they're incompetent, we can't expect anyone to do anything, because we're here individually for our own individual soul purposes. We are only planting seeds in each other.
Absolutely.
Say that. Say that. So real quick, if anyone just pulled up in the chat and pulled up, we are here with mental health therapist Tyuana Herring, and she's providing us with some great expertise, and just mirrors the theme of this podcast. We need each other on so many different ways, and I'm glad to have you. But one thing before we get out of here, I want to be clear or have a clear distinction between psychiatrists and psychologists. Someone was kind of going into the just difference in that.
That's a great question.
One's super duper scary. But yeah, you can just take off any time. The distinction between mic check. Hold on. Yo no sé. I can't
can you
hear
hear us? Oh, yo no sé. You sound real Dominican right now.
Mic check. Try it again, Tiana.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you go.
Oh,
there you go.
So the distinction.
Someone asked that question.
No, that kind of came from me.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow. So a psychiatrist is there for medications, right? Well, okay. So if you're seeing a mental health therapist and you are doing talk therapy, right? They're helping you move from one space to the other emotionally. But let's say you have depression and you need some serotonin to help you, because that chemical imbalance is actually to the point where you need a psychiatrist to intervene. That mental health therapist is going to refer you to a psychiatrist. Mental health therapists cannot prescribe medication. The psychiatrist is going to prescribe the medication, and the psychiatrist is going to help you with medication management. They're going to check on you, make sure the milligrams, the dosage, the medication is working for you and it's doing what you need it to do. Your therapist is going to check in with you and make observations in regards to how you're showing up in therapy. Like, because sometimes when people are depressed, their minds are all over the place. They just really, it's like cloudy, right? They can't really, sometimes when it's really severe, they just really can't hold a conversation for too long. Either they start crying, or it's just like they're just not making sense sometimes because the chemical imbalance is really severe. So that mental health therapist is going to make sure that the medication is working that the psychiatrist prescribed, right? And that observation from that is more so how you're showing up in therapy. Are you able to hold a sentence? Are you able to process your thoughts? And has your crying decreased? That's how we know that the medicine that a psychiatrist prescribed is working. The psychologist does a form of talk therapy as well, but they're more assessment based. They're more science, like heavily on the scientific side of things. You can still see a psychologist for talk therapy. So it's not too much of a difference between a psychologist and mental health therapist. Of course, the education, but and the credentials, but they rely heavily on the scientific modalities.
So Ely said, so the psychiatrist deals with medication, and the
Yes.
psychologist is just sitting down and do talk therapy, kind of doing that.
Right.
Wow.
And way more assessments and things like that with you.
Okay. I have no problem saying I would like to go see a psychologist. As a form of talk therapy, having someone that can sit down and help me process some things.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, that was something that I wouldn't even admit, or like when I was in pain and not knowing how to process that. And a friend of mine, she actually said, "You need to go see a psychologist." And I was a little attacked at first. I was like, what do you mean? Like what do you mean? But I really processed what she was saying. She was saying you probably need help that I'm not capable of giving you right now.
Mhm.
And once I
Mm-hmm.
actually had a conversation with my mother, I didn't realize that she had a mental health therapist. She was going and seeing talking with someone, and she said it kind of helped her deal with a lot of things, and she was showing up in a lot of better ways, and she was really processing things. So when she normalized it for me, I was like, yeah. She said, your insurance covers it. Just here's the list, and so I have no problem saying that, and I think it's
Mhm.
strong to say that publicly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong. When I go back to New York, yes, I would like to go see a therapist and sit down and have, like I said, an unbiased opinion or engage in
Right.
some talk.
Right. And that mental, and another good example, just to paint the picture a little more. I had a client that I was doing talk therapy with, helping her process some of her experiences and her emotions. And it reached a point where she was stuck on, she got stuck, right? There was a situation where she just really couldn't move past it and process why, I'm just going to say it, why she was stuck on this delusion. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, I the work in trying to help restore her cognition and get her to see like this, how, just to see the connection of how certain experiences led her to this point, right? And we reached a block in the road where it's like, okay, you're needing more understanding of why you can't get out of this delusion. So then I referred her to a psychologist, because a psychologist is going to do more assessments and going to do a deeper processing on that delusion or that cognition. So, and just for everyone who, if you go seek a therapist, a good therapist, if you see that you're not moving from one space to the other and you're getting stuck, you may need to move to a psychologist to help you break down that thought and process it
Mm-hmm.
even further.
Okay, so
That's great
I
to
think I'm gonna
know.
start with a therapist. I don't know if I need a psychologist yet.
Yeah,
I would like to have a therapist.
Yeah,
yeah, start.
I'm safe in saying
the
that.
first step.
Yes,
Yeah, the
Just
first
like
step is
a
therapy.
therapist.
And then if it's really something that you just really like, it's like, I can't move past. If it's like 6 months and you still haven't moved past a certain issue cognitively, you need to see a psychologist, and they need to help you break that down into more pieces. Yeah.
just like in the
I'm glad.
comments, Jasmine said it's easier for people to understand and accept the term mental health therapist. Absolutely. For someone
Mhm.
starting off, I believe it feels less intimidating saying, I do need a mental health therapist versus, oh snap, I need a psychologist, like
Yeah,
makes you
Yeah.
feel, yeah.
that's cool. I'm gonna revisit some of the other ones in the chat.
But
First, shout
thank
out
you
to
for
everyone.
breaking that down. That's very important to know.
I got
Those terms. Those terms.
it. We don't want to see nobody already. So the breakdown is so important so we can understand, at what spaces people operate in professionally, so that you're not intimidated. It decreases that stigma.
Mm, mm.
And I just want to
Something
say
that was.
I love seeing people who look like us in this field. I just love it. So kudos to you. Congratulations. That's so, it's so important. Oh,
Thank
I love to
you.
see it.
Yeah, see, it says anyone in the mental health space for a living needs the most love. So the people who are doing the help, they need the most love. I think that was a important thing. Or the people
Absolutely.
who are, and I remember that was something that we had talked on, Kayla, when I was saying I kind of just want to be there for people, and I kind of wanted
Mm-hmm.
to kind of be there. She says, "Now, what are you going to do with those emotions?" I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't think about that.
He's like, wait a minute, you caught me left field. I'm like, yeah, because you're just gonna pick up all these emotions and you're like taking it away from
Mm,
them, but now you have it on you. It's sitting heavy on your heart. So what are you gonna do with that?
mm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Say that, yo. This has been.
What are you going to do with other people's stuff?
mm-hmm.
This has definitely been the most successful episode that we had.
Very
This is
powerful.
definitely, this is powerful. This is very beautiful. And shout out to everyone who's in the chat, everyone who's.
Right.
Uh, I'm trying to wave to everyone and just. I'm sorry, say it again. You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I was saying everybody tuned in, they can drop more questions.
Yes,
Okay,
our
cool.
beautiful audience, we appreciate you all and so happy that you're here and tuning in. And this is for all of us, you know, this is not only for our audience and this is for strangers, for us, for Josh and I too, because we say it all the time, we need therapy, you know, we
Say
all
that.
do.
Say that. Say that.
I remember, Josh, we were talking the other day, and we were talking about how people find a therapist. My book
Talk about it.
is Psychology Today. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's been around for a very long time. It's a really
Repeat
good.
that one more time. I'm sorry, he's breaking up a little bit, real quick. Where can we find a therapist, guys?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, he
Yes,
was
no,
breaking
we
up
got
slightly, but you're good. Go ahead. Good to go.
Psychology Today is a website, psychologytoday.com. You can go up there, you can plug in your zip code, plug in your insurance. If you want to see a Black therapist, if you want to see a Hispanic therapist, anybody. If you have any particular preference or issue, you can filter it out and it'll show all the therapists in your area or someone who's doing virtual sessions. And you can start from there, and you email them and let them know that you're interested in a session, and they'll email you back with how to sign up. And most people don't know this. The insurance that we pay on our jobs has a behavioral health component,
Mm.
right?
mm-hmm.
So literally get free count. I know people say therapy is expensive, but you can literally get like 10 free sessions or more, 10 free sessions per issue on most insurance plans
Mm-hmm.
through that you already paying for. So let's say you're dealing with something that's making you feel some form of depression or anxiety. Those are two separate issues. So that's like 20 sessions. You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like you, which and how to find out is you call your insurance, or if you can log into your portal, make sure you have a behavioral health, which all of them do, but you look for who your behavioral health plan provider is. You call
Mm.
them, and then they'll explain to you how to sign up and enroll into those sessions. So like
Oh,
take
awesome.
a take
Please
advantage.
give us that website once again.
Psychologytoday.com.
Psychology
Psychology
today.
Today. And
Psychology.
one more question. Thank you
Yes.
for providing that resource. So now, what are some tips? Because I feel like oftentimes we want to start therapy, but it's a hard time finding the right therapist. Because this is like starting a new relationship, right? You want to feel comfortable. You want to make sure that this person is the right one for you and you are the right client for them. So, what are some tips in looking and finding the right therapist for you?
So when you're looking for the right therapist, you want to make sure that it's someone that can help you with your um, real going to let
Hold
you.
on. T, you
Oh,
was
you're
breaking up
breaking up a
just a
little
little
bit.
bit.
Yeah, just a little.
I don't know why I keep breaking up. Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
you're back now.
Let's try it again. So finding the right therapist. Go.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're finding the right therapist, you want to make sure if you go to Psychology Today, read their bio. Like, do you get a vibe from their description of who they're saying that they are, the issues that they're saying that they can help with, and when you book a consultation with them, what's the vibe? Like, do you feel comfortable? Do you feel that this is going to be someone that is going to provide a safe space for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are, a real therapist is going to let you know if they can help you or not, right? I'm not going to say everyone practices that way, right? But do you genuinely feel that this person, it's like an interview, right? Do you really feel that this person can help you with your issues just based off of how they're showing up, right? Like I said, what they're putting on their description. That's the most important piece you want to pay attention to, right? Don't just choose anybody. Choose
That's
someone that
right.
you feel that you catch a vibe with. I always say I
Like
show up as
dating.
like, yes, like dating. I always say I give off like girl therapist vibe. Like, are you catching a vibe with me? Like, do you really feel like
Right.
I'm helping? Because I don't want to just be someone that you're coming to. And me personally, like, I'm not the therapist that, like, once we sit down and we identify what your issue is, that therapist needs to be creating a plan and showing you what that plan is forward. Okay. So if you book your therapy session, you have your consultation, and then you have your first official session. That first official session after that consultation, maybe the second session, by the second session, you should be creating a plan with them, right? They should be partnering with you on creating a plan to move you from A to B. That's how you'll know the person is genuinely there to help you. It's not just showing up for 6 years. It's not showing up for 6 years and just talking, right? If that's what you're choosing to do, like, yes, but is that helping you? No, because now it's a codependent relationship. You don't want a therapist that you're going to be codependent on. Meaning that if all hell breaks loose in your life, like, you don't know what to do. Like, your therapist should be equipped with skills to maintain. And one thing I always say is therapy is not a life sentence. You're not going to be with me here forever. I'm not going to be here forever, right? I don't want you to feel like, you have to rely on me so heavy, like we're tied together for the rest of your life. We're going to create a 6-month plan, 6-month plan, and they should be checking in with you within those check marks, within that time frame, and seeing where you are and saying, hey, girl, it's 3 months, still talking about the same issue.
Right.
Let's stop here and let's process why we stuck here, right? Because when we first started, this is where you said you wanted to be. We still over here, and we in 3 months. How do we get over here in the next 3 months? That's what a real therapist should be doing with you.
Like, are you committed to healing or nah? Like, what are we doing here?
They be doing all the work, right?
Right.
That's not what it's for. It's not for them to be doing all the work. You got to play a part too, but also they should be able to hold you accountable to the work that you're doing.
I think it's also important to remind people that give it a chance. Even if the first session doesn't go well, give it another try, because a lot of times we go into the first session nervous, not knowing what to expect, closed off, not really speaking up. So how can you allow your therapist to help you if you're not really being yourself? So give it another chance.
Absolutely. And that's a key thing that you said too. Like, how can I expect them to help me if I'm not really being myself? Because a lot of times we show up in therapy, and I'm guilty for have done it. I'm doing this too, right? It's like, I don't really want to tell them what's going on, so I'm just say this.
Right.
That issue of just showing up as this is what's going on, because eventually we're gonna find out. Eventually we're gonna get there, because then it's gonna be like, something's not making sense. Like, you said this thing, but it's not making, like, it's not mathing, like it's not lining up.
Right, the math ain't math.
Mathing, right? So it's important for you to really show up as yourself and really show up with what it is that you're wanting to work on or heal. Because it's not, it's just like we just playing around, or we will be ourselves, because it's like, do you really help?
Right. That's a good exercise that was given to me that really helped me out. Someone challenged me to write 100 things that I'm grateful for. And like, even writing down those things, I just kind of see these things and they kind of were playing in our mind. So it's like if someone says, don't imagine the word red, right? The first thing you do is what? Think of red, even if you don't. So it's like when you write things down, the power of that. So really going into your gratitude and things like that. So I want to, I think a great way to end this podcast, just one thing that you're grateful for. One thing that you're grateful for. I'll go first. I'm grateful for the safe space that my mom has created for me to heal and to decompress from all the pressures of the city. Yep.
I am grateful for faith. I'm grateful for coming from a foundation full of faith, because even in my lowest moments, I can always turn to that and I come out on the brighter side.
Amen. Tyuana?
I would say one thing I'm also grateful for is my faith as well, because it has become my foundation in my career. So I'm grateful for my faith, but also my career and being able to show up as a Black woman and be a face for mental health in our community, to help break down that stigma. So I'm grateful that God has chosen me, and strengthened me to do this kind of work.
Amen. Amen. This has been another
Amen.
episode of We Need Each Other podcast. Like, you're just seeing how much we need each other in different capacities, different facets. So everyone go out, follow We Need Each Other podcast on all platforms. I go by the name of Coach Classic. Yeah.
Kayla, are you ready for us to
I'm
say our names?
yeah.
Oh,
Just real quick, so they can just follow you guys and kind of keep it tally. I'm Coach Classic. I'm a fitness trainer, but also I enjoy just doing this, spreading the good word, and just connecting with people on the real level.
I am Kayla de la Cruz, a social butterfly, a genuine heart full of great vibes. So come join us.
hi, I'm Tyuana Herring. Call me T. I'm a mental health therapist. My Instagram is at I am Tyuana. Follow me. And I'm grateful to be on this podcast. I love what you guys are doing. I really do. I
Thank
told,
you.
because I was having a conversation with someone of just the capacity of why we need, it was just a woman to woman, like why we need men type thing. And then I was speaking to Josh and he was like, oh, come and be on the podcast. I was like, oh my gosh, we need it. Like, this is so perfect. Like, the timing was just like,
Timing, God's timing is always perfect. The way God aligns things up is insane sometimes. But
yes, I love what they're doing because we do need each other. We do. We do.
Say
thank you
that.
so
Say
much
that.
for being here. We appreciate you so much. This was an
Yeah.
amazing call. So grateful.
Yes.
And
Thank
thanks for everyone who has tuned in, everyone who dropped a comment. Love, love, love. I think I try to wave to everyone in here. Y'all are much appreciated. And we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. And even this topic specifically about mental health, I think this can be a 5-hour conversation if we choose to, because it's so
Absolutely.
needed. So we're going to keep the conversation going. We're going to invite other health professionals to come on and just explore why we need each other in many different facets. So any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Any
No,
final
well,
thoughts? Yes.
one last thing I'll say, like I said previously, therapy is not a life sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to go to therapy and feel like you're going to be stuck there. It's
Yeah.
it's just a first step in your healing journey, or just in your. Not everybody needs healing, right? Or
Hmm.
everyone doesn't think, but it's just the first step in your journey towards you being your very. So it's not a life sentence.
Amen. And I just want to thank God for allowing us to serve our purpose, not only for ourselves, our family, our friends, but our community. This is
Absolutely.
huge. And, Josh and I were talking and we're like, we don't want to only base it on the Hispanic, Black, and Brown community, but let's be honest, we need it the most. And we need to see people who look like us
Yeah,
on the screen. So I'm just grateful to be here.
absolutely, absolutely.
Much
Thank you.
love to you both. Ah,
Peace.
Much
there we go.
love.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yum, yum.
Peace.
Bye.